Talladega, they ain't holding no chain.
Gordon's right back Copper, and we get biggie. Bars and umbrellas on box paper, it's 19.
Four cars side by side in a wild thrill ride with the roar of the engines leaving all doubts behind. As the wheels spin on, chasing dreams we can't hide. That's a car life where legends never die.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Four Wide Podcast once again this week. We got Mr. Balacco here with us today. Blake, man, how are you doing?
Man, doing good, man. Living the absolute dream. Got a wonderful wife. Got a awesome kid. 7.5 weeks. Got a good dog. Got great friends. We got an awesome podcast. Lots of comments, man, this weekend. Been rolling some fun times right now. I'm loving life. What about you?
Man, you sound like you just woke up to be a thankful guy on a Tuesday, right? Thankful
I know.
Tuesday.
Thankful Tuesday. You know, we should make it trend. You know?
Yeah. Just forget this Thanksgiving thing. Forget about it. Let's just make it Thankful Tuesday.
Forget about Taco Tuesday and make it Thankful Tuesday.
Facts. I'm good, man. Living the dream just like you. Watched a good bit of racing this weekend. There was a lot of great, honestly, just old school and new school racing mixed with this these plate races from ARCA all the way to Cup. Enjoyed that and kind of just riding the wave.
Yeah. Been a great weekend, man. Truly. And we'll just dive right in. I cannot think, genuinely, I've been trying to think about this leading up to the podcast. I cannot think of a more hype weekend based on the fact that two drivers performed well. I mean, the racing was what it was on Sunday, Saturday, on all three races, right? But I'm trying to think, literally, when was there this much hype around just two drivers? I don't know. It's been a while. You know, but the fact that you had Cletus doing super good on Saturday, a superstar for ARCA, and then on Sunday you had what I believe is a superstar was born. He's been one in the making, but now that he's crossed the threshold of winning, and obviously the best win celebration ever, no doubt about it. It feels like I just feel good again about the trajectory of the sport. Things are just right, you know, and I haven't felt that way as a race fan in a long time, just at ease with where things are going. I'm super excited about this past weekend, and I cannot wait to see what the fruit of it is going to be in later weekends to come.
Yeah, I think even if you look at the season as a whole, you have noticed some immersion of Tyler Reddick, who is a younger driver. I always thought Tyler Reddick was definitely going to be a superstar, even back to the years when he was driving for Junior Motorsports in the 8-car. He ran in the truck series for a little bit, and he looked well. The emergence of him in the Cup series, especially this year, haven't rattled as many wins off as he has this year. It's been good for NASCAR. I feel like it's been part of that healing process that they had from this lawsuit. Which, speaking of, we've been something that's been coming for a long time, but Jim France actually passed the torch down. He resigned from his position, and Steve O'Donnell took his position, and then Ben Kennedy took over what Steve O'Donnell's position was. So some back-end changes, which when we talk about the Cup race and about some instance that people like immediate social media engagement was about the celebration, about how it was going to be possibly enacted about NASCAR. We'll talk about that later. I won't get talking too much about it before we get too off the point, but have that fallout, have Tyler Reddick come in so strong this year for 23XI. And then on top of that, you have Cletus, who's bringing so much eyes to the ARCA series. And the ARCA series is already layered with talent. It started out this year, like, we knew Cletus was going to make a couple starts, but it wasn't a big storyline like it has been. Obviously, probably the O'Reilly race at Rockingham really got more eyes upon him. Great viewership for these ARCA drivers. You got a phenomenal pipeline started with all the fantastic racers, both on ARCA East and West.
Yeah.
You got highly talented people week in to week out. And then you have Cletus and Squirrel that's just showing out kind of out of nowhere and just brought so much momentum. And at the end of the day, if you're the ARCA series, you really need that. You need someone to bring eyes to that program. If you don't have someone with a bigger name that's carrying that series, you're not getting a lot of eyes. Therefore, the sponsorship money for the series, like General Tire and Menards, are not able to funnel as much revenue.
Right. Funneling revenue. There's something I wanted to talk about. I'm glad you said that. So, on the idea of sponsorship and funneling revenue for the ARCA series, Mr. Sam's spray wax that was on his car this past weekend sold 10,000 units of it in just the 30 hours from when he raced. Like, you want to talk about really, I mean, forking out some revenue on how successful that was. I think that's a pretty good instance of it.
And that's on the lowest series of NASCAR. I would say competition wise, of course, you got like the open wheel series, but really the pipeline for most people is ARCA. Now we talk about the Cars Tour. It's like Cars Tour and ARCA. Are they similar or different? But just from the standpoint of the NASCAR pipeline, ARCA, then trucks, then O'Reilly, then Cup, to bring that much eyes on one car in the ARCA series, it's incredible, but you gotta also imagine it's not only his main sponsor, it's all these other sponsors of cars that are running against him up front or throughout the field. I mean, people was 110,000 were watching on the YouTube video on his onboard. I think that's where it peaked.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was something like 113,000, 110, somewhere like that is like just the onboard. You ain't even watching the whole race. And that just shows you how popular that guy is. And then back to the math that I was doing. So that one bottle of that spray wax is $29, right? Sold 10,000 of them. That means it's $290,000 worth of that product just from an ARCA race.
That's a lot of money for, a series where, I mean, honestly, Blake, what do you think? Even from like when it's on Fox Sports 1, how many people you think watches ARCA week in to week out?
I think on average last year it got about 200,000 viewers on average. Don't think I've seen the numbers from this past weekend, but I would say there was at least, I think with the Cletus factor, you've got to say at least probably 500,000 people easily that tuned in overall at least. So I'd say probably a good amount.
At the end of the day, ARCA's on the up and up, and it's thankful for people like Cletus and Squirrel and even other people. I mean, he didn't even win the race, which was a cool storyline in itself. Andy J is what most people call the guy that won the NASCAR race, because that last name is just asking for any Southern person to just mispronounce it 100% of the time. Yeah, 100%. You ask someone at Talladega to pronounce that just blind, they're messing it up 70% of the time. But the guy is literally a pizza driver when he's not driving ARCA cars.
Yeah.
He's sitting there, pedal to the floorboard, checkered flag waves, and he's still on the gas because he thinks there's one more lap, and he's not letting off, and he has no clue.
Yeah.
So, just overall, just a cool weekend. First career win for him. First career win for the guy that won the O'Reilly Series race, and the first career win for the Cup Series race. I mean, just a phenomenal weekend. And you expect that at Talladega for, one or two races, but to have them essentially sweep the weekend, that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, man, it was an awesome weekend. And especially, I like what you mentioned about the O'Reilly race, which I thought overall was a pretty decent race. Yeah, having Corey Day be able to pull off his first win And man, the stories write themselves, right? Because you've got Corey Day and Hocevar. I know we'll talk about that later, but two guys who've kind of earned a reputation of like beating the crap off your back bumper, right? Gets their first wins. And boy, did it seem like popular wins, and super excited for Corey Day. And that guy has such a cool story, too. I mean, the fact that he was essentially hand chosen by Kyle Larson and Jeff Gordon to come into the O'Reilly program and get some pavement racing experience. And, you know, he really hadn't been doing pavement racing that long, like 2 years. He's already winning races. Like, dude could be a star one day. Granted, I know it's a Superspeedway race, and I ain't trying to discredit it. Once he gets that first win like he did, and now he's got that knowledge of like, hey, I can do this. I can go win on pavement. That dude's going to be dangerous. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, and it's not even that he's just like come out of the woodwork and like just kind of lucked into it. We've seen the progression this year. He's been running up front. I mean, majority of the races so far this year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the Hocevar thing. I know we kind of jumping around a little bit, but just the themes kind of all tie into each other's. The progression that Hocevar even made from like last year to this year. I would say he's probably running more up front early last year, but I mean, still, he's putting on great performances and he's putting himself in the right spots. And the racing that we're seeing from him, like if you look at like the in-car camera, like the gaps that he's shooting and then just throwing it in there, it's just phenomenal. And I don't know about Day specifically, but I kind of do assimilate a little bit of Hocevar and Cletus pretty close together because they're two aggressive drivers. Now, obviously, Hocevar has a little bit more experience in the car and multiple different types of cars, where Cletus is more, drag racing and that kind of cycle, and he's kind of moving on to like the oval perspective for these mass races for these race cars, not like your, Freedom Factory 500s or stuff like that. It's just really cool. It was a really cool weekend overall for just eyes on the sport. The engagement that we've seen on the track and off the track's been very vocal. We've seen that locally with one of our posts that Kent posted up on Instagram. It's like the algorithm itself is like decided, hey, we're going to push this video finish of this ARCA race with the tagline of just what a finish. That is it. Kent's, what do you think? He's about 3/4 of the way from the start finish line on the front stretch. He's kind of like right there where the standard start finish line would be before you get into that little curve.
Yeah, he was pretty much where the tri-oval began. I think that's safe to say. Yeah.
And the engagement on that Facebook / Instagram reel was crazy because we got, I think it was about 2.5 million watches, which is insane to us. Like before this, for full transparency, Blake, what will we have, like 400 followers on Facebook?
We had 581 on Facebook. Like, okay numbers for a sophomore season, right? But essentially, like, we're not Dirty Mo or any of these big media companies, right?
And never would expect to be in the same realm as any of those podcasts.
A big shout out to everybody who has followed us within the last 3 or 4 days. Love y'all. Glad to have y'all on board. Yeah, 2.6 million. And even the one where Cletus is just pretty much leading the bottom line, that was at 393,000. And yeah, I mean, so you're looking at close to 3 million views from just this past weekend alone. So
500 followers to 3.1 on Facebook, which is just, and that's where majority of those views did come from, 100%. And I can trace that pretty easily. But one thing that I would like to mention, and then we can get talking about we'll get into the O'Reilly race and talk about the actual racing of the weekend. But it's been something that's kind of been a reoccurring thing especially on the Facebook in regards to NASCAR, is 90% of those comments. Blake, what would you say about one of the two? This is you looking kind of blindly, but not really. You kind of have a general perspective.
Yeah.
Don't look at it. Just take a guess.
Yeah.
What were those comments about?
Well, I start with the positive ones. It was Cletus was a big topic within the comments. And then criticizing the crowd size, man, that was another one, which kind of took me a little bit by surprise. Not too much, but like, all right, let's just address it. That the grandstands hold probably, I think, 76,000 seats at Talladega. So let's just say they were anywhere from 5 to 10,000 people in the grandstands, right? That is a lot when you look at a typical ARCA race that's on a short track. Okay. Like I said, it doesn't look like it because it's got a lot of seats. I totally get that. And look, I get years and years ago, they would have more people at the races. It's a different era. I've never known, I did see one comment where it was like, they used to pack it out regardless of what series. I'm like, I don't think that was ever the case with ARCA.
ARCA was literally purchased in 2018 or 2019 by NASCAR.
Right. And so based off NASCAR owning ARCA numbers, now I know ARCA was pretty much its own thing beforehand. There was a lot of rain in that forecast for Saturday. And from what I understand, it all came mostly in the morning. But man, think about it. If you're there, do you really want to risk spending money and not getting to see a race if you know you can't make it the next day and it's going to be rain delayed, and especially on a super speedway? I get it why the stands might look a little bit less than admirable, right? But what you got to remember, and this is just for all fans, and I'm kind of saying it to myself here, you had 110,000 people, like you said, on Cletus's ARCA camera. You probably had, let's just say, let's keep the average going, 200,000 people watch it on TV. You've got probably 25,000 people easily in the infield. So when you do all that math, you're looking at 1,000 to 500,000 people who are engaged with the ARCA race alone. Look, it's not always what meets the eye. I mean, you look at other forms of motorsports, right? Like, just because there's not a lot of people in the stands at 2 a.m. at the Daytona 24, nobody's really criticizing those seats, because you all know that it's the whole party is in the infield, right? But hey, we are up to 3,000 followers, man, and they're making noise. So they're making noise, and we're grateful for the progression.
Yeah, I'm hoping that maybe a couple of the people that are negative towards NASCAR, I know this sounds crazy to say, threw us a follow so we can change their minds.
Sure.
Because I know a lot of them, some of the comments are like, a lot of reason that NASCAR, the seats are going down is because NASCAR went woke. Is what I seen one of the comments say. And I'm like, first of all, one thing that's really bad about Facebook, and if you guys get your news from Facebook in regards to NASCAR, first of all, don't. 100% do not do it, because there's fake posts almost daily. And it's usually it's regarding Bubba Wallace, or, Denny Hamlin's a big one. Any of the major figureheads, Kyle Busch is another big one that people like to make. They make fictitious articles that get clicks, that get comments. And, honestly, if you're one of those pages and you get enough viewership and views, you can get a partnership where you can get paid to post stuff on Facebook. 100%. And they're taking advantage of people that are not into NASCAR, that are so unplugged from NASCAR, that they're making revenue off false articles.
Yeah.
If they decided to follow us, even though they commented something not so nice about the post, right? is that we can change their minds and show that NASCAR is actually trying to get back to the traditional ways. All we got to do is look at the tagline this year.
And also you mentioned O'Donnell is the new CEO. How many times, and rightfully so, would the fans get irritated because they see something they like and then NASCAR be like, nope, not doing it anymore? Quite a bit. Did it feel more corporate? Yeah. Well, guess what? The celebration this weekend, O'Donnell's like, nah, I loved it. You got the CEO fist bumping the guy who did something that normally probably would have got banned even like 2 to 3 years ago, right? And they're trying to bring the fun back. So I understand NASCAR might not get back all the fans they lost. However, I do want everybody to know that it is a new era in leadership. It's a new era for fun in racing. The tickets is definitely worth it to go and get to have a blast. The camping prices, Cole, you and I camped at Talladega about 3 years ago. Pretty admirable price compared to what you would have to pay for a hotel and food and tickets and all that. Super competitive options. So racing is becoming a lot more fun again for the fan. It was fun, but it was kind of like that. You kind of had almost like corporate big brother that was kind of watching, But now, I remember O'Donnell just on Sunday night was even telling Jordan Bianchi and Jeff Gluck, hey, he's told sponsors, stop having such a stranglehold on whether your driver can show his or her personality or not, because he's like, I promise you, the more controversial they are, the more you let them be, the more products you are going to sell. We promise you that.
There's no telling how many M&Ms were sold during Kyle Busch's heyday.
Yeah, I mean, dude, think about how many cars Rick Hendrick sells. I know personality-wise, it's not the most fun thing ever, but fun to watch on the track at least. How many cars do you think Rick Hendrick sells?
Good amount.
Yeah, I think last year alone they brought in 13 billion. Chili's, a year or so ago, did a report on when they started sponsoring Hocevar. Sales nationally went up 20%. And can't imagine what they are now. So kind of shows you that there's some fun things that are coming back. I had somebody message me, honestly, not too long ago, who back in the 90s was a pretty diehard Dale Sr. fan and then started rooting for Kyle Busch because had some aggressive natures, kind of like Earnhardt did. You know who the guy's rooting for now? Carson Hocevar. And you know how many of those guys who loved it in the 90s are starting to come back into the sport and really kind of notice Hocevar? Quite a bit. So just want to let everybody know, hey, I know from a fan's perspective, I can understand it was tough for a while, but it is a new era. It's not going to be completely like it was in the 90s. There's some things that are better, some things they can work on, but it's on an upward trajectory. I truly believe that.
Yeah, most definitely. But we'll move on from our soapbox moment. But like we said, we appreciate everybody that interacted with us this weekend, talking about the empty seats and the wokeness of NASCAR and everything. Appreciate it, and we're hoping that through maybe just a general educational short, maybe every week, I'll have Kent post up on Facebook. We'll have him be the director and kind of explain everything that's going on with all that. Maybe he can help clear the masses.
Yeah.
Get the rightful information to the people that truly need it. They deserve to know how good NASCAR is doing in regards to viewership, fans, and everything. I would say closer to 70-80% of these tracks are realistically looking at their ticket prices and being you know what, sales are down a good amount. We'll probably reduce our ticket prices. We can probably get more people to come in and sit in these seats. And Richmond was a great indicator of that. And we've mentioned that multiple times, so there's really no reason to have to go back and talk about that again and again. But just take a sigh, turn on a NASCAR race. If anybody that commented on that Facebook post, turned on the NASCAR race on Sunday and seeing all the people in the seats and how vocal they were, not
Yeah.
even at the ending at the race, but just like at the start of the race, you could hear like them roar
Yeah.
as the car was going around. Like, yes, Talladega's took 64,000 worth of seats throughout the years out of the racetrack, sure, but when you have a full house like that, it makes it well worth it.
I know they had to take a lot of seats out. I think part of that, genuinely, I think a lot of the fan base got older during that stretch. You know, like I know 2011, and I'll promise I'll make this relevant. Like 2011, I believe, was the first year that baby boomers hit Social Security, right? And a lot of NASCAR fans who grew up from like the conception of the sport, going into that year, like you also saw where the economy was tough, and a lot of fans were just getting older, right? And they hadn't replaced them with younger fans yet, so it created this gap, right? And so I don't know that, like, I think it's safe to say, yes, it did lose some popularity, but some of that might have been just with an older fan base, right? So, anyway, I say all that to say there's a lot of factors that played in, but like you said, how wild the fans were, even at the start of the race, most of them were younger fans, especially down there at right off of 4 at Talladega. You and I and Austin, Daniel, and Matt sat there a few years ago. Like, man, those were $25 tickets for the college seats. And you see why it's full, because it's so daggum cheap and they're having a fun time. Man, they're having a blast.
There's not many people that can say that they don't have a good time at Talladega. I mean, you go to that racetrack, you're having a good time. Regardless, you walk in and think that you aren't, you most definitely are by the time you leave.
For sure.
I'll tell you somebody that was having a good day, though, was Corey Day once he did walk out of that racetrack, getting that first win out of the way, carrying that flagship paint scheme of the Hendrick cars. Has to feel good for him. He only led one lap, but it was the lap that truly mattered. But the amount of depth that we've seen in this field, we didn't see the typical, hey, Austin Hill's leading 200 laps. And of course, the race was only 113 laps. But
The metaphorical, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great race to sit down and watch. And Kent was actually at this race. When they got to the point where they're like single file, towards what was like right towards the end of the race, they're single file, one groove. And I'm like, the racing's still great even when it's like that, because you know that they're sitting there mathematically ticking away, deciding, hey, when is the right time to make a move? And if you're going to argue from like the standards of NASCAR, like NASCAR needs to get back to, that's exactly what they were doing back in the day.
Yeah.
And you didn't hear people complain about it. But one thing that I really enjoyed and was able to see through the TV where I think Kent wasn't able to was to watch people like Jesse Love go through and weave in and out of lanes. Like, that was incredible.
I was watching his in car and I was like, my word, that looks fun. I like, get it, boys.
I'm pretty sure the point that I'm talking about, it was a part where they were transitioning out of a pit cycle.
Yeah.
So you had one groove that was a little bit slower than the rest of everybody. They were still getting up to speed, but it still wasn't, astronomically slower. It wasn't like there was only 5 cars in this pack. There was 10, 15 cars. It was a pretty steady pack, I would say. And he's just sitting there weaving in and out of traffic, just scooting by them like they're sitting ducks on Highway 77. Like, it was incredible. And that's something that you would standardly see from like someone like Austin Hill. But I know Jesse Love's in the same, RCR, ECR engines kind of ordeal. He had a strong car, but it was the most equalized plate track race that we've seen in a couple years in the O'Reilly series, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, you had a lot of good talent. I mean, and some consistent talent at that track too. Jesse Love, Austin Hill, even Jeb Burton, man, usually does a pretty good showing at Talladega. And, really, I don't think you really know who was going to win. And that kind of added the unpredictability factor, which I appreciated. And yeah, it was kind of almost odd in a sense of like you are looking to see, okay, when is the 21 going to get up and be able to make his moves, right? And for a lot of the day, that just wasn't the case. And it was a little odd, you know? And so I think you've gotten I think you've got a lot of the field who have figured out, okay, we have collectively got to work against RCR. And that's really the only way you are going to beat them because they are just that good at super speedways, right? But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good race this past weekend. I enjoy seeing those O'Reilly cars race on the super speedways. I love that package and the product that it puts out.
One thing that really surprised a lot of people is how strong Junior Motorsports was right out of the gate. You had Allgaier, who's, I mean, he's not someone you expect to be up front in the plate tracks. He's sitting there competing with, Carson Quapples out there leading a short track racer that, most people just think about Martinsville and Bristol, and he's sitting there leading a plate track. You got Sammy Smith, who won Talladega.
A year or two, yeah.
Yeah. And then just overall, it was just a great field because it wasn't just a one car leading. You had people like Austin Green up front occasionally. Austin Hill only led 3 laps. When's the last time he's only led less than 60 laps at a plate track? It's got to be probably when he broke in, what was it, Atlanta last year, maybe in the spring. I know but he might have still led that many laps. That's the crazy part about it.
Man, I'm having a hard time remembering because he was on a super speedway tear for a good bit. I mean, he led a lot of laps. He led a lot of laps in Atlanta this year, and so I mean, kind of did get spun out on the last lap. So,
Thank you,
uh,
Ross.
yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Boy was on a heater for a stretch there.
One reason that people viewed that maybe this race wasn't exactly the most exciting is we literally had, 4 cautions, I think, throughout the whole race.
Yeah, that's true.
You got your the first 100 some laps went green.
Yeah,
And then I think lap 113 is your caution. A lot of people tune out. But the problem with that is like Kent's at the racetrack and he's sitting there like he kind of tuned out. I don't know how, if I was at that racetrack, how I'd be able to tune out of that race, even when I'm there, because like just the in and out, like there's so many people leading at different times. I'd be engaged 90% of the time, I feel like.
I feel like just a helpful tip, like especially if you're at a super speedway race, and like I get it, if you're up top, you don't have the feel like you do if you're sitting right down near at the track, right? And so, look, my advice is, and this ain't just for a super speedway, but for any track, like if you're watching a race and it's kind of dragging on, in your opinion, go down to the first row for a couple laps and you'll love it. I've never taken anybody or out everybody I've ever taken to like their first race, and we go down low. Nobody's ever been like, I hated that. Well, some people naturally might not want to watch the whole race from there because they want to see, that at the end of the day, that's based off preference. But, being able to be down low and feel the speed, feel the adrenaline of the cars, like nobody hates that.
Yeah, I definitely agree 100% with everything you said there. Sitting down the low is always, especially if it's at Martinsville, at those short tracks, saying like the rubber literally falling off the car. Sometimes a piece of rubber will come flying by you. I mean, you might need to wear your own helmet when you're down there. Watch out for some of that rubber buildup. I remember I got coinked one year, and I think it was at Darlington, of all places.
Oh, yeah, dude, that was tough. I think that was last year.
Yeah, the fall
Yeah.
race at Darlington.
Man,
It hit me right in the eye too.
that was tough. Even at a small track in the corners like Richmond, it'll happen. And like Wilkesboro. Oh my gosh. Things will go projectile.
100%. But It was really cool to see Corey Day get that win. Hopefully that gets some more momentum and for him throughout the rest of the year. Hopefully people stop kind of getting off, messing with him, talking about how he runs too hard kind of deal thing. Brent Cruz, once again, was close to getting his first win.
Yeah.
That man is picking up real quick. I say man loosely, of course, because he's like super young. But in the race car, that guy is a pure man. You got Jeremy Clements once again getting a top 5. He didn't get a top 10 this week. He got a top 5. He finished 5th in that 51 car at the plate tracks. Just insanely cool. That's one of the greatest thing about these plate tracks. You see people compete, and we've talked about Clements at Rockingham and other racetracks, but these plate tracks is when you get to see these guys really get a chance to be up in front and getting their sponsorship time, really. That's a really key component. I'm sure if you have a list of NASCAR scheduled races, and Talladega is probably one of the ones that you have circled as a sponsor, you're like, I want to be on there because there's a really high chance that my car might actually make it on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt about that. Towards the end of the race, especially like the last caution played out, what would be your summary and kind of your take on the last few laps of the race of the O'Reilly race?
I think there was plenty of momentum throughout the race, especially towards those last taking laps, because you had people like Sheldon Creed looked like he was poised to get his second win of this year, looked really incredibly strong. You had Sam Mayer, who I thought was probably going to win the race ultimately. I think that both of the Haas cars were mad fast this weekend.
Yeah, they really were.
So they were 3 wide on that overtime finish. And you had the lap cars kind of sitting there in front of them too. So it was looking like it's going to be a crazy finish. And then, you had Jeb Burton hit the wall towards the ending of that race. You had Sam Mayer get turned, so that kind of took him out of that perspective. So that ending under caution ordeal was kind of not the best. Once that spin did occur, that kind of did take a little bit of wind out of the sails because, you see the car start to slow down and you're like, not very exciting finish. And people probably, especially people that don't like Corey Day, will say he kind of lucked into it because of the caution, because your probably best competing car at that point was Sam Mayer. He gets turned. And then you have Jeb getting into the wall, who's a really good plate racer. He's right there behind Sheldon Creed at that point. I still think he deserves it at the end of the day. I don't think anybody can take that away. I feel like NASCAR had to throw the caution 100% though at that point. I wonder how Connor Zilich feels about Corey Day now after this race. I know previously in the year that he said Corey Day was a hack.
Yeah, that which honestly, rightfully so, with what he had to endure circuit of the Americas. No, look, solidified a great passageway for you to start getting credibility with your first win with not only just drivers in the industry, but like just fans ourselves. Like, all right, he's not just going to be a dirt racer that comes in, tries it, can't do it. This guy looks like he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, at least in the O'Reilly series for at least a good amount of time. And man, I could see a world where he gets on a hot streak, and you never know, man, he could in the next couple of years turn out to be a Cup prospect. I think it's too early for that, even in a year or two, right? But who knows? If you get on the hot streak, you got to take what promotion you can get whenever you can get it, right? So I am looking forward to what his path is going to be from here. Can he give Justin Allgaier a run for his money for the regular season championship eventually? I don't think so. But when you look back, or when you look to the chase, and he only has like a 25-point advantage at first, Allgaier has one race that goes bad. Corey Day has multiple that goes really well. Dude, you could have a decent championship battle on your hands with these two. So I don't know. I think it's going to be super awesome. I think as the season goes on, you're really going to see. I think you're going to naturally get what the championship race in the old format forced. You're going to naturally get this year. I think you're going to have Allgaier, Day, Love, and maybe a surprise guy, maybe like I don't know, maybe a Sheldon Creed who's been super consistent, be able to fight for a championship in the chase. We'll see. I think it's going to really play out and be fun to watch as this year goes on.
And one thing that, I mean, we've talked about Cletus, and we talk about all these big names. There was also another big name that was at the race, and that was former Super Bowl champion Jason Kelce
And
on Corey Dave's team.
First time he does it and he wins.
Now, he didn't have a role in regards to like going over the wall. He was handing the fuel can over to the guy that was fueling the race car. My first thought to the mind was like, how the heck did he get there? Like, well, what egged this on? And then two, I'm like, how great for NASCAR. We already got a star-studded weekend. And then you have Jason Kelce just show up randomly and is on the winning race car team. I mean, think about all the Eagle fans that might be able to flow into NASCAR.
Yeah. Especially if they market it right for him, And so, man, I tell you, NASCAR's got a great opportunity right now. Michael Jordan's winning a lot of races as the owner. Jason Kelce just got in. So many great things going on, and I love it. And, at the end of the day, who wins the most is the fans. Because imagine, like when you and I sponsored a O'Reilly car a couple of years ago, fans like us who would go sponsor. And then lo and behold, Jason Kelce is on pit road and you got access to him. Like, what? I mean, what a nice surprise, right? For anybody who might be there. So, yeah, I think at the end of the day, the fans are the true winners of this weekend.
I believe that was just kind of a one-off for Jason Kelce.
Sure.
But he might come back. I mean, shoot, you never know. He might just come back to Talladega in the fall, but hey, it's still, he comes back. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. Even though that, a lot of people, you either like the Kelces or you don't like the Kelces in regards to him and Travis. People still talk about him, and it ends up in the same realms of engagement. So happy for that. But I think it's time to move on to the big salami. Definitely, I feel like the biggest storyline for NASCAR, but it's tough to even say that because of Cletus, man. It almost feels like Cletus almost overshadowed the Cup race, which is insane to even think about. But it is his fellow peer, the guy that's been cheering him on in the ARCA series, that got his first career win at Talladega this weekend. We can sit here and talk about celebration and everything, but first, Blake, let's talk about the racing at Talladega this weekend. I feel like that should be something that shouldn't be overlooked. It's how did you feel about the racing overall? They changed the stages around to just the kind of change the formatting and the saving, and it looked like it was working for the most part. You still had some fuel saving, but then we had, the obvious big one that we expect, but I mean, like, the big one, probably the biggest one we've seen in years in the next gen car era.
It was huge.
And that impacted a lot of the ending of the race for me. But overall, what would you say about the racing?
Man, I have mixed feelings, to be honest. Like, I'll start out positive. I am super excited and glad that NASCAR tried something different with the Superspeedway package. Like, I think the more and more I observe race fans, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think authenticity is something that a lot of race fans look for. Was it an authentic pass? Was it an authentically good race? When you look at what went on, did you have your 3 to 4 wide spectacle that looks good with the fuel savings? No. I did appreciate there was a little bit more authenticity on the strategy. I did appreciate seeing some people do things differently. For example, Chad Fincham in Garage 66 car leading the race. Cody Ware with Rick Ware says, you know what? I mean, to heck with most of the fuel cell. Let's go up front and ride around. I respect that, you know? Like, I love seeing guys who want to go up and lead. I love seeing the Toyotas push it and try to screw the rest of the field over by going a lot faster. So I appreciated that there was some varying strategy, and a part of it kind of looked like some mid-thousands racing a little bit, where you had your predominant cars out front by, you know, half a second or so, where they kind of separated the men from the boys, right? I liked that part of it. I think it still kind of functioned as a band-aid and not really getting towards the cure of it, right? Because I think the cure is the cars weigh a lot, and so therefore the drag on the car makes it to where the air just, man, the way the air goes over and goes around these cars, you have got to have pretty much the whole field and at least 7 to 10 cars be willing to go in that third lane for it to even work. And in that first stage, I was hoping that they would just go full out pit, go full out stage ends, right? Still didn't happen like that for some of it, because some were trying to do a one stop, some were doing a two stop. Now, those who were doing the two stop, I don't think had to save as much fuel, but you still had some who were still doing the one stop, and that's where a lot of the fuel savings kind of came in, right? And it's not so much about the fuel savings as it is the fact that I don't think with these cars that you can genuinely like race the way that they want to, or the way that the fans want to see them race, right? So I think that's really the issue they have to address. But look, I'm glad they tried to change it up. You know, you had a lot of guys who had a lot of different playbooks, and to me, the strategy part was pretty interesting. Now, do I like watching 100 green flag laps at Talladega? No, not really. But the strategic part I thought was fun. Do I think it's a long-term solution? No, but I think that they're trying, and I appreciate that, because I think something had to be done. Like, you look at some super speedway races, at least in the grandstands, it was starting to get kind of tough looking. I think this past weekend, I think there was a renewed hope that, hey, like it might be a little bit better. So I think you had a decent amount of people in the stands trying to see what it's going to be about, right? But at the end of the day, you got to do something with the car. Take some spoiler off and, I don't know, restrict some airflow in the engine with a tapered spacer or something like that. But I thought stage 2 was probably the most entertaining, right? I don't know. I would love to see them maybe add a fourth stage to the super speedways until they can get the car figured out. Maybe add a fourth stage, and I don't know, don't throw the caution. Do you throw the caution? I don't know. Maybe try it for one, then try it for the other. I don't know. I mean, I think you got options, you know, because, and I get it's hard to make drastic changes to the car. I think what is frustrating is it's a two-sided coin. Like, I love what the new leadership in NASCAR is doing, right? I just hate that it took new leadership and 5 years into this car to do something different with it. And so I think is the struggle point for a lot of fans, is like, there's a super speedway car package problem. You look at the short tracks, that really didn't start getting better till, man, 3 or 4 years in. I think there comes a point it's like, enough's enough. Like, we want it fixed, you know? And I get there's a lot of moving parts, OEM support, the teams, the sponsor, right? I get that. But like, everybody wins when there is a good super speedway package. You can tell these cars, like, the fact that they can't go anywhere, like that last stage, like I said, it goes back to the authenticity thing. Like, face value, like, you see, like, hey, one's going ahead, one's, you know, it's kind of like a pendulum swinging a little bit. Like, who's going to be able to get out front, right? But I loved, and everybody loved the days when, and it wasn't that long ago, you could go from 17th to 5th in 3 laps or 15th to 1st in 2 laps, and you were be able to go full speed doing it. Not, hey, this bottom line's got to go 30% throttle. This middle lane's got to go 30% throttle. But if this high lane, if you go 100% throttle, you can make it work, right? It wasn't like that. So I think they got to find something to counter it with until they can really take a deep look at the car.
Blake's very passionate about this, if you can't tell.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I hear in your argument that I'd like to point out is something that some people may not, that are a casual fan, they don't really know, is I still don't think that the short tracks are fixed by any means. And really the thing that's really changed these short tracks in the last 2-3 years has been Goodyear and their progression with their tire.
Yeah.
I still don't think that the short track package is fixed. I think it's a lot better, 100%, but I feel like the tire has been the big carrying arc when it comes to these tracks. And then when you come to a plate track, we mentioned it when we were explaining how tires really don't matter. I mean, you got people that will put on 2, or sometimes they won't even put tires on at certain points of the race, and they're not even sweating it that bad. And of course, you have the occasional failure, for sure. But like what we usually consider to be like the standard Band-Aid, you're not able to use at Talladega, and maybe that's the reason that it was so nominal and you were able to see it so much more.
Well, and I do want to kind of paint a picture. So say you are a newer race fan, you're listening to it and you're like, man, what do you have against 3 to 4 wide racing the way it was the last couple of super speedways? Like, I don't have anything inherently against 3 to 4 wide racing. What I do have a problem with is like what's causing that. And the fact that, all right, in previous generation cars, you would be able to go 3 wide, 100% throttle, and man, they'd be running anywhere from 200 to 210, and they'd be putting some bad fast lap times. In this generation of car, you can get 3 to 4 wide racing if your fuel savings, but on a super speedway where people love fast cars, like that's the reason, biggest appeal of why you go on the racing part is the speed. They are running 6, 5, 7, 8 seconds off the typical pace of what they were in previous generation cars, right? And it's just like nobody wants to see you go 8 seconds or 7 seconds slower on a super speedway in order to produce racing that is good. Well, the last generation cars you had racing that was good and you were able to go full throttle doing it, So I hope that helps out, because I think that's where the chasm is. Like, it's not about this whole 3 to 4 wide racing argument. I think it's more, how are you able to race? How are you able to achieve the means of 3 to 4 wide racing? And I think that's what is the core issue.
And you may be asking, like, in regards to the saving gas, why does it truly matter? And I feel like the broadcast does a decent job explaining this. Is the harder that you run in the field, the more gas you use, the longer your pit stop's going to be. And if you're a mid-pack driver and you can kind of get similar speeds and slow down your car, you can jump people on pit road quite easily, just based upon how much fuel you have to put in the tank to be able to get to the end of the stage.
Yeah.
And that's really the core issue, if you really do think about it, is that how everything overlaps on pit road. So, like, if they did something like ARCA does, where they are non-competition cautions, where you can't gain or lose positions, that would cure that issue. But the problem is that kind of rubs against your traditional fan base, and a lot of people don't like that. The people that are on pit road, they're paid to do what they do every single week is because they're able to advance their position. Where ARCA is a lot more of like the remnants of teams. You don't have a full-fledged team of 12 people that are able, 15, 18 people that are willing to be there. They're paid on a roster. A lot of those people in ARCA are volunteers, if we're being quite honest with each other. I mean, there's not many paid positions. But just to sum that up, and I'm not going to sit here and complain the whole entire time because the ending of the race was phenomenal. We had a good winner, good celebration here, there. Dell Senior's back, recording a lot of people. I'll get to that later. But we had a good race once everything finished up. But that beginning to mid race was really, really rough. And then we have those cars wreck out. That really hurt the speed of the pack too. So
Yeah.
it really wasn't a great equation altogether. I feel like maybe if all the cars were still in the field, and that's a big hypothetical because you're going to imagine that you're going to lose a couple. That may have played a little bit more of a factor into seeing where this change of strategy from NASCAR's headspace was with the cautions and whatnot, and how much gas they can save or lose. But let's just forget about that. Frick it. Throw it in the bin, as people say in the United Kingdom, or England, as most Americans know that place as. Blake, do you think that there will be someone that wins a race like this in the next 10 to 15 years and is able to just have the reaction of Carson Hocevar winning his first race at Talladega? Be tough, wasn't it?
Truly, honestly, the only potential even close hypothetical that I could come up with is if somehow or another Cletus made it to the Cup Series. And given the progression, I don't know that that'll happen. Maybe. I don't know. But man, was that a throwback to how the crowd sounded when Junior used to win, or how somebody like a Dale Senior used to win, right? Like that was awesome. Like Chase Elliott gets a big crowd response, but man, for as long as it went, dude, Carson Hocevar is based off fan reaction. The fans' reaction is right on par, if not better, than a Chase Elliott. So I don't know that you'll have a experience like that. Now, I think it'll happen more and more the more he wins, right? But that special moment when that happens, man, that was definitely a classic, and you witness history for sure. I don't know. Like I even saw a lot of people on my social medias who they might nominally post about NASCAR here and there. Man, they were all about Hocevar this weekend. So when it comes to fan growth, fan engagement, I think it's going to be tough pressed because I feel like a lot of fans can relate with Hocevar a lot better than they can with some other popular drivers. Just to be quite honest, it would be tough pressed.
See, this is the reason that I gave so much slack about Ty Gibbs winning the other week, and there was not a reaction. Now, I understand that Talladega, you have a lot more people at the racetrack, 100%. But as small as a place is at Bristol, the sound of Bristol, it kind of like rumbles. So it makes up for a lot of that space, even when it's not filled. Talladega is completely open. Like it's pretty much like not super closed in, it's super wide. So hearing the crowd's reaction for Hocevar just shows you how much Ty Gibbs really didn't get a reaction. He did, but he didn't, It's not even the same ballpark. And Hocevar is not a name that's put on the side of a building like Gibbs is.
No.
So we have a clear, future if Gibbs starts winning and, regulated. We might have that Hocevar. If he does the same thing, you might have that good and that bad kind of deal thing that we used to see in the past. which would be a really cool trajectory. Another thing that I would like to say, as someone that supported Dale Jr., my parents were big Dale Sr. fans, is I would say be careful about comparing Hocevar to the Intimidator this early in his career. I mean, he just got his first win.
Yeah.
I think he's the closest that we have to a old school throwback driver 100%. But to throw comparisons like that so early is just, I don't think it's right. Not for the name of Dale Sr. I think it's not right to Hocevar, because that's really big shoes that you're trying to get him to fill in for a 7-time champion, someone that had the most flamboyant personality in the series at the time, that didn't even have to act that way. Like, he didn't go out of his way to act. He just was who he was, and he carried that. I don't know. I feel it's very tough to fill those shoes, and when you start comparing, that's why I have people that's like, oh, he's the reincarnation of the Intimidator. I want to be like, no, he's Hurricane Hocevar is kind of the tagline. That's who he is. So that's just my thing. You start comparing people, like the NFL draft does it a lot. They compare these draft prospects to former players, and some of them never reach that cap. I think it's tough against them, so that's
Yeah.
just my POV.
I like that. I think a lot of people mean well, but in application of it, I agree with you because, like, I don't want to take the Intimidator and say, hey, the Intimidator is now Hocevar, because the Intimidator was Senior's identity. But Hurricane Hocevar, that's his identity. Like, lean in, hone in on that, I think is the correct way to go about it. Now, I can completely understand how somebody could be like, he races a lot like a guy that I used to root for. And I totally respect that. I love watching it. And especially, like, if that kind of racing is what got you passionate about it and it was lost for a little bit, now it's back. Yeah, I totally understand that. But I think having the identity of Hurricane Hocevar and going all in on that, I think is the way that you're going to really build a brand and really build a superstar brand.
And if we're being completely honest with you, now he's looking even better in the points. The only person that you would say that's looking really good is Tyler Reddick at this point, having 5 wins and being almost 110 points. He is 110 points above Denny Hamlin currently, which, that's 2 bad races for Reddick and 2 good races for Hamlin. Hamlin could be competing for that top spot.
Yeah. Well, and Hocevar, he's only about 75-ish points ahead of 16th, which is a buffer,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of shows you how close everybody is, right? But still not a given. But man, he's moving on up. That is for sure.
Another thing that I want to talk about with the ending of this race is I'll let Blake kind of speak to this more, because I was very surprised how the race ended, given how bad the push was on the bottom lane. Like, generally, like, the top lane was so much more connected through those last few laps. I thought Buescher was going to be like clear sailing, like he's good to go. Like, he's been so close to winning these restrictor plate tracks here in the past. He's been up front with Brad a lot, and then he's got like hooked up with Eric Jones at one point, and they were moving pretty well. And of course, Eric Jones got spun, but we had that restart and everything. Blake, what was your honest perspective? I know eventually that the bottom lane kind of got it together towards the end. And when I say got it together, they really didn't, because they really hit each other, then pummeled themselves up into the middle of the lane and disrupted the top lane.
That bottom lane was tough to watch in the last 20 laps. Like, I feel like the weak link was probably the 3 car. Just did not seem like his push on Bowman, or whether it was how he was getting pushed, just to be fair, right? But man, it just did not seem like from third car on back, he was just getting tons of help on that bottom line, right? And pretty much Alex Bowman and Hocevar were the only one pretty much making it happen. And sometimes Busher, depending on who was ever on that bottom line, right? So yeah, that was kind of unfortunate to watch, and because the top line, like you said, very well formed, good chemistry, good meshes happening, right? I think what probably hurt the bottom lane the worst is when Hocevar got pushed by the car behind him and got a little wobbly, came down and hit Eric Jones, and Eric Jones got sent into the grass. To me, Eric Jones was doing really good on that bottom line. I think when he went away, that's when it became tougher to move forward from what I observed.
The bad thing about Eric Jones is getting pushed. He was like a big caution flag in himself. Like he was 100% probably wrecking, and he eventually did. I mean, he was just so unstable, and you could see it. Like it was incredibly, but he could push really, really hard. So if you wanted someone behind you, you wanted Eric Jones behind you, but you did not want to be the person that is pushing Eric Jones. So I don't know what you can really do in that scenario, and I'm glad it worked out. But hypothetically speaking, man, it seemed like that bottom lane really didn't have a chance till what ended up happening on that last lap. Really, that last turn 4 to the checker flag. I guess technically the 3-4 car on the bottom lane, not position wise on the racetrack, they got squirrely and they moved up in the racetrack and they kind of disrupted that top lane, they were super right on top of each other. I feel like without that, they're probably pushing through and Busher gets that victory.
It's all a symptom of how would that bottom line be if that third line could have come to fruition, right? To be fair, with as many cars that were wrecked, I don't know that you have got tons and tons of genuine 3-wide racing with as many cars that were wrecked, right? But like, could the bottom guys, could they have moved up? Could you have shifted and you be able to go somewhere, right? It would have been totally different, I think, if you could really move and meander instead of just having to kind of like force it the way that Hocevar did as he was kind of coming up through the pack, right? But yeah, I mean, you just can't go anywhere, but you got to push well, and just couldn't seem to get a good push on that bottom line for a good portion of it.
And I also wonder if some of the symptoms of this race was that they didn't get to qualify.
Yeah, or even practice, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, that's a great question. I mean, especially when it comes to handling. But on the other hand, I think a lot of times you might have one 15-minute practice session, then you run your qualifying speed, right? And run your qualifying laps. And yeah, I don't know. It definitely would have been interesting to see if they could move around what that bottom line could be. But it kind of crazy. Even though there was weak links, it still ended up prevailing.
Yeah,
And
most definitely.
I think I was curious on the last, let's see, on the last lap. Man, they are struggling on the bottom lane. But Busher about had them clear on the top lane. But man, I'm talking about maybe 2 inches. It looked like he potentially could have had him clear. I wonder if he could have come down. Man, I think Busher would have easily been your winner, you know? But eventually I guess what I'm saying is that it surprised me with how dominant that top line was, and the fact that for some reason on the last lap, Busher still was not comfortable getting a clear from the spotter, or the spotter wasn't comfortable to give a clear for him to come down because it was getting some inertia on that bottom lane.
I think one thing that was in his mind is he's the only Ford up there.
True.
Behind him, I think, was Ricky and Chase Elliott. I think Chase was in front of Ricky Stenhouse. And 100% of Busher's move it down in front of Hocevar in that lane if they were able to clear that. Ricky is one of the best pushers on the plate tracks. And that's probably why Buescher didn't want to leave that lane. I know some people said that the reason that Eric Jones wrecked was because of Stenhouse, because how everything progressed with that push and everything and how they kind of got out of line.
Yeah, could be.
But when you're one of the best pushers at the plate tracks, you're going to cause the most wrecks.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to just look at Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski historically has been one of the best plate racers and pushers in our generation in NASCAR, what me and Blake's kind of grown up through. Just seeing through him. I mean, thinking like the tandem drafting days.
Yeah.
Him and Carl Edwards and the feud that they had at Talladega and all the wrecks and whatnot that has occurred throughout the years. He's one of the best to do it. Your best pushers are the drivers are the ones that make those decisions that could put the race in jeopardy for somebody else. And I feel like that's the reason Buescher didn't want to go down is one, he was the only Ford in the top 5 at that point, top 6. Eric Jones was really the only guy that was his friend because they were like the two candles that are like red and blue in the white candle store, right? I mean, they're out there and they're not matching. They're just trying to get by. And then you got these Chevrolets that have really seemed like they kind of understand the body more with their new body that they got, especially when they're pushing Chevy to Chevy. Now, it's not necessarily as easy when you're pushing a Toyota or a Ford. So maybe that's what it was in his head. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we had Carson Hocevar get his first victory. And I feel like NASCAR as a whole was happy about it. But then you look at the Jeff Gluck poll, and it's the 4th worst race of this year. I know it's early. Talladega got a 55% yes and a 44% no. And if you compare that to another plate track like Atlanta got 92% yes, 7% no.
Yeah.
And then Daytona, you could say, was kind of a mid-average race, and you kind of assimilate like the fuel strategies at Daytona. It got a 73% yes and 20% no.
Yeah, that is interesting. Man, I was thinking,
I thought it'd be 70s at least.
yeah, because of the popularity of the hosts of all win, but maybe instead of just basing it off the winner, they really did it more based off the racing, I guess, this go round. I think one caveat I think that's interesting, like on that good race poll, only 5,716 people even bothered to vote, whereas Atlanta, 24,252 people decided to vote. Heck, even for Phoenix, man, that even got almost 17,000. Darlington got about 17,000. Coda even got 18,000. So I don't know. That is really really interesting that it was that low. Because I'm surprised too. It kind of makes you wonder if Hocevar didn't win, what would it have been?
Probably right there by Ryan Preece at the Clash.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, I mean, especially with how hyped the weekend was. I don't know. I just expected it would be higher, you know?
And it might just be that we're, as a race fan for us, where me and Blake watch all the racing every single weekend that we can. We may miss the ARCA race here and there, but we're always watching the trucks and the Xfinity and the Cup race when possible. And maybe for someone that was not following NASCAR through the weekend, we've seen the good Xfinity racing, and then we've seen the really good ARCA race that they put on together. Maybe we're kind of looking at it from like the whole weekend perspective.
Yeah.
And they're just looking at per the one singular race, which I mean, really, that's how that poll was written was this a good race? It's not good races, plural, for the weekend. I don't know, but I think it's a broken system when it comes to that poll. I really do. I've said that multiple times. I think you can't base anything upon a yes or no poll.
Well, I think there's a difference in a great race and a good race too. I would say the 2022 Coke 600, excellent race. But with that, the way that the poll is worded, there's only two answers: good or not good. And so good covers from where I think, yeah, I thought it was an okay race, to the level of excellent, where like there's some races that just don't deserve a good button. Right. It deserves a heck yeah, like excellent button. So no, I get what you're saying.
All right, man. I think that pretty much does it. I don't think there's anything else that we can really say. I think the racing overall was not the greatest, and you got people complaining that we're in the wreck about how bad the package is. Like Blaney kind of went off
Yeah.
in his interview, talked about how bad the car was. I'm sure NASCAR really liked that, but at least people are being vocal and being, trying to work to fixing the car for these super speedways. And NASCAR's actively trying to figure out what the crap they need to do too. So it's
Yeah.
not like they're putting their head in the sand like you see an ostrich doing. But let's go
Yeah.
ahead and move on. We get the truck specs this weekend, man. You excited
Right.
about that?
Yeah. Always.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I live and die by I think the truck series is probably the best racing that you see week in and week out. And you're going to have Carson Hocevar in that 77 truck this weekend. So that's pretty cool. Brandon Jones will be running. William Sawatch in the 5. Jones will be in that one car. 25 of a very familiar truck series driver, Parker Kligerman, will be returning. He'll be driving for Ram, I believe. 27 of Tony Breyer. 45 of Ross Chastain. The 62 of Corey Roper. And of course, Hocevar, like I said, will be in that 77. So that's going to be a really good race. Truck series races at Texas are always phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
The O'Reilly series, you got Garrett Smithley in the 0, the 1 of Connor Zilich. Austin Dillon's going to be in the 3 car. Quapple in the 9, Raja in the 32, Brad Perez in the 42, Joey Gase in the 55, Dawson Cram in the 74. Some guy named Kyle Larson in the 88 car. And 91 of Mason Bergeria. There are actually 2 open starters for this race. They will make the race, though. There's only 38 teams in the field. Chad Fincham and Corey Heim will be the 2, respectively, in the 66 and 67 car for this weekend. I think that'll be a really good race for Heim to really know where he is, because Texas is a very treacherous track in general. And in this cup car, we've seen how crazy it can get, especially when you hit the bump at the wrong point.
Yeah. Did pretty well at Kansas, I thought.
And the tire setup, I think, is pretty similar to the tires that they were running at Kansas and Las Vegas. Right?
Yeah. And so that'll be good. You look at the way that the asphalt has wore out at Texas, it's starting to come into a decent talking point of tire strategy. One thing that I'm going to be looking at this year is, will the left sides matter? I know last year right sides matter big time. Left sides still didn't matter a big amount. So maybe Goodyear, if they can bring a left side tire that is softer, wears out. That's what I'm going to be looking for. But it's going to create a lot of good strategy on pit road. On if the tires aren't wearing out, who's going to take 0 tires? Who's going to take 2 tires? Who is going to take 4 and hope for that long run where it will matter? So I think it's going to be interesting. But man, Texas is, you get above that one certain groove and you are done for. Like,
It's kind of go ahead.
it has become actually a fairly fun track to watch, even though the repave of it was awful. It's starting to turn into a track where it's like, we kind of unexpectedly like this.
Yeah, man, it's kind of whack sitting here thinking about this right now. There was a point a couple years ago where, like, why don't they take Texas off the schedule?
Yeah.
Realistically, that's what we were thinking. Like, Coda's got a race. It's in Texas. That should be their one race. And that's where we're at, because the racing here is just not good. The drivers didn't like it. Fans did not like it. I mean,
Clearly in the stands.
Yeah, that's a racetrack where most people could have that circle, be like, yeah, NASCAR's dead based upon the stands. And they have a rational, like, explanation for that because that is a Cup Series race and there's hardly anybody in the stands.
That was tough those years. That was awful.
It was. But now it's like
They're back.
people, yeah, they've decided, like, holy crap, the track is back. So therefore, we're back. We're going to start showing up again. And Blake, me and him talked about this in the past, is when Texas was on that downswing, they didn't just keep the prices where they were. They looked at what they had, like, and they changed the prices of their tickets to meet the demand. And that's probably what brought a lot of those fans back to the racetrack.
Well, and I think it's such a weird track, but in an odd way, but a good way, right? Now, there's going to be no more than 2 lanes this weekend, right? But how many times have we kind of said, if you push your car to a certain limit, there should be a punishment for going too far, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the case at Texas. I mean, from where it was so terribly repaved, it almost morphed. It was a unintended, what's a good word for it? It was an unintended blessing because now, even though it's going to be 1 or 2 lanes, so many guys, if you just get quarter your tire, half of your tires on that part where it's just slick as ice, dude, you're like turned around and you're hitting the wall backward violently. There's bumps bad in turns 3 and 4, right? So it's going to be kind of interesting to see, like, will Texas continue to be entertaining for all the wrong reasons still? And but if it's bringing the fans back, if it if the tires are wearing, there's a penalty like you don't go no more than this high, and if you try to and you fail, I mean you're spun out and destroyed. Like, it's provided for some pretty good entertainment
Mm-hmm.
in the last 2 to 3 years.
So Blake, we talk about this a lot with the ticket prices. I believe they've changed a little bit about their pricing of their tickets since they've started to get it up with the attendance.
Yeah,
How much do you think a front stretch ticket is around Texas? This would be around, I think it's like section PL 415 or something like that. And this is not like resale. This is just your standard ticket from NASCAR. What would you say that is if you had to guess?
$80 or $90.
$95. And honestly, not terrible given it's the only, ticket that you have there.
Yeah,
Because most of the other tickets are like 125 and stuff, but those are resales.
yeah, and they're higher. So
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that they've done a good job at fixing the problem that was Texas. People have been showing out, and the racing's been good. Like, it's not been great. It's not like we're not seeing Atlanta and Kansas level races, but it's been good. It's exceeded expectations.
oh yeah,
And I think that's the main thing when we come to these racetracks. When we come to a racetrack and we're like, oh man, it's not my favorite on the schedule. And then we go to the race and it's not even like a great race. It's just as the Jeff Gluck poll says, a good race. We're like, dang,
yeah. Because
I'll
I mean,
take
like,
it.
yeah, because I mean, like you said, for years it was like, all right, what do we do with Texas? This clearly ain't the answer, right? I think leave it and just kind of see how it does, right?
Hmm.
Make it treacherous, make it treacherous. So yeah, I mean, I think I think it's starting to come into its own, and it's starting to get its own identity back a little bit now.
Yeah, it's kind of like Dover, right? We talk about how Dover's a treacherous racetrack and how that's kind of built its personality up over the years, being the Monster Mile and everything. Well, that's kind of where Texas is starting to become is this treacherous and not throughout the whole racetrack, but for a good portion of it. If each track has their different types of personalities at the end of the day, that's all you could really want as a fan.
Oh,
So, all right, man. Well, what is going to be your spicy take for this weekend?
this is going to be really spicy. I don't think it'll happen, but that's why it's spicy. I'm going to say we are so entertained at the end of this weekend after the Cup race. Some people are going to be begging for a second date.
Yeah, that's definitely one that I would not expect. Spicy indeed. Boy,
Yeah.
caliente.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I say that we see a RCR win on the Cup level.
That's not a bad
I don't know if I want to say it's Austin Dillon or Kyle Busch. Because Kyle Busch, he's got some momentum now coming out of that plate race. He finished in the top 10.
new crew chief. Hey, he's won a lot of races at Texas before.
Yep. And Austin Dillon, I believe, has won in Texas before as well. I know he's won on the Cup level for sure. Heck, I'll go with it. I'll say Kyle Busch returns to victory lane.
I like it.
Have the cowboy hat on and everything in victory lane.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I think it'd be good for NASCAR if Kyle Busch wins a race here in the next year.
Yeah, it really would be. NASCAR needs Kyle Busch to do well.
Most definitely. All right, Blake. Well, I know that you have a little bit of an announcement to make before we move on to the Pick'em series for this week. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and hit us with it.
Yeah. So, as you know, a couple weeks ago we had Mr. Alan Huffman on, and thought it was a pretty good interview. Wouldn't you say, Cole? I thought we had quite a good time, and even after we got off the air with him, we still talked for probably just as amount of time as we did off air as we did when we were on air. So it was a really good fit, and he has a nonprofit called NCN Ministries, who we're working out some logistics for him to partner with our podcast. Said he would. We're figuring out which segment that's going to be. So just wanted to give a big shout out to him and his ministry. I know he's super excited to use racing as a means to be able to share the gospel and share the good news of Jesus Christ with people. Super excited to have him on board, and he'll be sponsoring one of our segments, and really excited about that. So looking forward to seeing how that's going to come to be. And I think he might just return the favor with maybe being on a truck soon for a Hickory race. So I think it's going to be quite a good partnership.
Yeah, I'm most definitely looking forward to the future in regards to that. It's going to be really exciting. I'm sorry, I was pulling up this El Documento for us. Oh, dang. Austin actually updated the document. That's great.
Well, Dega.
Alrighty. Well, we're going to recap the truck series since it's been a long time, man. Last time that we picked for it was Bristol, where Kent won with Christopher Bell. Picked Chandler Smith. Austin picked Kyle Busch, and you picked Stenhouse. Respectively, Kent was first. I was second. Austin was third. You were last, so therefore you would have the first pick at Texas. You don't have to tell us it necessarily, man. But if you want to, you can pick tonight because
Yeah.
you got the first pick. You can't pick Heim, you can't pick Honeycutt, and you can't pick Braun, which Braun should not be on the schedule. Do you want to make your selection today?
Sure. If I can't pick Heim, Honeycutt, or
Colin Braun.
I'll take Carson Hocevar.
Alrighty. Ride the Dente in Texas.
Right.
All right. Well, Austin would have the next pick, so of course we're blocked in regards to that. But the O'Reilly series for this.
Yeah.
So Blake, you have the first pick at Texas as well, since Jeb Burton finished last for your pick, which he had a great chance of being in the top 5 at the end of the race before that wreck happened at the end. You can't pick Larson Allgaier or Jeb Burton.
So Larson, Allgaier, or Burton, I can't choose.
Yes, Love is now available on the table for you, though.
Well, probably ought to go with him.
Right, I'll write it down. Once again, Austin will be our blocker since he came on third. I would pick next after him, and then Kent with the win would pick last. In the Cup Series, Austin did pick Hocevar with his last pick, so he got a pretty good value out of that.
All right.
It's funny how he updated that race, but he didn't update the Xfinity race / the O'Reilly race. Blake, you picked Bubba, and you came in second.
I'll take
Can't pick Blaney. He came in third, and I picked Logano, and I came in fourth. all three of our drivers were involved in that incident. I think Hocevar was slightly involved, but it wasn't to the point of being super damaging. Obviously, it's probably just a couple of door slams for him. But all of our drivers are completely wrecked, and that was just trying to figure out where they lined up on the transponder when the wreck happened, I think. I have no clue how Bubba was in front of Logano, though. Well, I think Logano and Blaney, that was the thing. And I was like, there's no shot that Blaney should be in front of Logano.
Well, they were ahead of Bubba for a portion of the race, but I guess they went back and I guess solidified it, which, I mean, hey, I'll take second more than I will fourth, right? So
that means I would have the first pick at Texas. It's a really rough racetrack to choose cup wise because it just seems like anytime they go to Texas, it's different. I technically don't have to do anything right now, and I won't pick, but I can't. I don't even know who I'm really considering. For some reason, William Byron comes to mind for this racetrack,
he's good at Texas.
and Watkins Glen's next after the Texas week. Then you got Dover for the All Star race, which is a technical free pick for us. And then you got Charlotte and Nashville. Byron's good at Charlotte, so you hate losing him at Charlotte. But that's probably a guy that I'm considering coming into this weekend. I cannot pick, let's see here, Bowman, Bubba, or Logano. Really, nobody that I'm really worried about losing. I know Logano won Texas, I think last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was like a fuel mileage race, of course.
It was either that or tires, but yeah, it was something like that.
I think it was tires. I think Cindric was like lining up to win that race, and then had the tire explode in front of Logano.
Yeah, I know he battled McDowell for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't know. All the races run together sometimes, but I know Logano won that race because it was the AAA car, which he's not won in a AAA car, I think, throughout his whole career to that point. It's been a really rare paint scheme for him to win, so it was good to get that sponsor into victory lane for him. But, that's probably the guy that I'm considering since I can't pick Logano anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Blake, I know that you're kind of blocked in, but let's just sit here and, talk about it. Who would be someone that if you did have the second pick, you have the third, who would you consider picking for Texas?
Well, I imagine somebody like a Briscoe might be good this weekend.
Mm-hmm. He really needs a good weekend. He's had a rough go here in the last few weeks.
Yeah, maybe a Briscoe. I could see. Yeah, I mean, really any of the Gibbs cars.
Yeah, Bell comes to mind for me for some reason.
Yeah, Hamlin, Bale. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd probably pick Hamlin.
Yeah.
Out of those. But shoot, maybe Ty Gibbs comes in and gets the second win.
You never know.
Especially if it has something to do with tires, man. It seems like short tracks kind of play into his ball game, which usually come down to tires. So
For sure.
all right, man. Well, I think that's pretty much everything. We recap Texas next week, and then we get to go to one of our favorite racetracks on the schedule, Watkins Glen.
Yeah, that one's gonna be good for sure. But nah, man, good as always, and we're always working to figure out who our next big guest will be on the show. We're waiting to hear back from a few selected people, and we when we know, you all will know as well. So looking forward to seeing what's coming on the future. Definitely some who are coming here soon. I imagine we're going to get Alan Huffman back on to go for a whole episode. We really enjoyed talking with him. Let's see, got to get Brayton Laster back on as well. He'll be back on here soon, and so yeah, it'll be a fun stretch coming up.
Definitely. Well, we appreciate all you guys listening every single week, taking time for an hour and a half, listen to two guys ramble here lately, but four people when we're at full mass. So we appreciate everybody, and y'all take care. Hope you enjoyed the racing this weekend, and just keep supporting NASCAR on any regional, local level that you can, racing in general. And we will see you guys next week. See ya.